Hello and welcome to another episode or another video of the Beast amp rebuild. This is the main board for the amplifier. It's pretty small. It only measures about 4.5 by 4.5. I inscribed all the silkscreen in it using a 16,000 engraving bit, and I also routed out the back PCB for the amp. Now, it's kind of funny how small this is compared to the whole amplifier. I mean, the whole amplifier, I couldn't even get it in the frame of the video here. But this is what drives everything. So, I have this, and I have the where all the components go, just in case I can't see this or I can't read it properly. So, without any further ado, I have all the parts here ready to go, and the fuses for the top here to go up here. So, let me get started with this. I also have this, which is the power plug that supplies the plus minus 80 volts and the 2 grounds. So let's get started here. I'm going to speed the video up about 600 times faster. Some of these parts are stripped from the old board here, but most things like the diodes here, I actually remade these so it's on a 220 package style transistor, and they'll be mounted straight to the heatsink of the amplifier. Capacitors I left out. I stripped off the driver transistors and everything, and pretty much all the resistors are new except for the power regulated ones for the Xenia diode 34 volt circuit. So I'm just going to work from top to bottom, left to right, whatever. It doesn't really matter as long as you get all the components in and you put them in the right place. So let's get started here. Now when I put components in, I like to generally put them in the same way, with the gold band always facing the left side. So this will go in like this way, or the gold band facing the bottom. Alright, welcome back here. As you can see, I got the driver board mostly completed. There's a few more things I haven't put in, but there you go. So I haven't put in the pre-drivers yet, but you could see two of them sitting down here. I just want to test them before I put them in again. And I got the relay in, and the other thing is the MOSFET here that controls this relay as a timer delay. There's one change I want to make with the board, but I'll tell you about that later. Right now what I'm going to do is I'm going to check these devices here. And to do that, use a multimeter. Try not to get any glare on it here. So on diode mode here. You can still see the screen here. So I'm going to put the... First of all, I want to short out all the pins here. Okay. Then I'm going to put the negative on the source. This goes on this way. I'm just checking the pinouts here. I'm going to put this on the source here. And I'm going to put this on the drain here. And this should not read. So there you go. Open circuit there. Now since a MOSFET has a small capacitance between the base and the source, I could actually take the lead here and just tap it on here. And you can see pretty much a short circuit. To turn it off, you could just short the two between drain and source, and you could turn off your MOSFET. So there's just a quick test to see if the MOSFET is good or bad. So that can be put inside the circuit here. Now for these, I have to know the bases on them. And the base should be the leftmost one. Yes, the base is the leftmost one. So these are PNP transistors. So I'm going to connect it. First of all, I'm going to check the collector and emitter. To see if they're shorted out. The tab is the collector there. So that's good. And that's good as well. That's good. And that's good as well. Alright. I'm going to check the base to the collector here, and then to the emitter here. Good. And then I'm going to connect the negative lead to this, and this should read as a regular diode. So about 0.6, yeah. And to there. Perfect. Good. Alright, so those two are good. I've got two more here that I'll put in, and then I got these ones here to throw in here. I'll just throw them in on camera here, and I do have to clean this one up here. It was probably sitting pretty close to one of these resistors here when it blew. So, yep, this was the other one here. Before I do this here, I'm going to get to these here. So I need to make some diodes to put on the heatsink. Previously what I did was I just took these, which are diodes in here, just two diodes apparently, and basically I put this up just on the heatsink, and it just rested on the heatsink. And as the temperature would change, it would change these here. Now what I'm going to do here is I'm going to put them actually inside this package here. And I'm going to use 4 of them inside this package and put these on the heatsink. If you notice, I have a pot on here. And that can be used to adjust it. But I'm actually going to have 4 of these in total because I already made these 2. Now these are 3-pack diodes in here. So basically how this is going to be arranged on the heatsink is that one of the 4 packs will go there, the 3 packs will come here, and then the drivers will come about here-ish. And then I'll have the outputs here, and I'll have these ones lined up here all along. And you can see here on this one, which is 3, I'll hook it up to the meter here. We're sitting at about 1.94, and if I just take my finger here and I just touch the aluminum, you can see that as the aluminum starts to heat up, it'll actually start to drop. And as I actually hold the aluminum, it'll drop a much faster rate. So they are very sensitive as soon as you start to adjust the aluminum. And we can see on this one the same thing. We're sitting at 1.801, and as soon as we start to touch it, we're going to start dropping. And if we hold it, or if we would take the soldering iron, in fact, and we put it on this, we can see how fast we're going to start dropping as that aluminum gets hotter and hotter and hotter. So I'm going to make the 4 ones of these. And this is just regular JB Weld epoxy. The thing is, I made a U when I did this. I made a U with epoxy. I filled the inside with a bit of just a small amount of compound. Put the diodes in, and while holding them down I epoxied around it. Then I covered the whole thing. So the diodes have a very good thermal connection between the case and the actual glass housing that they're sat in. They are 1 in 41/48, and if you're looking for a Pioneer replacement for a SVH, sorry. Was a woodpecker outside, pecking at the window. If you're looking for a Pioneer SVH3, that's basically these. The S4 is what I'm going to make. So I'm going to take these apart and then bring you back in when I just have the case. So now I'm going to throw in these pre-outs and current mirror circuits in here and stuff. Basically all the transistors. I got the input differential pairs in, and now I'm just putting in the pre-outs and the current mirrors. So I bent the leads of these at a perfect right angle, because when this sits in the amplifier, the heatsink sits here, and the heatsink also sits here. And basically, these go in, and it just sits in here, connected to the heatsink, and they're going to be U-channeled down by 2 pairs. So, you have the transistors kind of lined up here. They're not in the right order though. So it'll sit something like that. Get a good side view. They'll sit something like this inside the amplifier, which will cause the board to actually be pulled above the heatsink just a bit. But I could always bend down the legs there and Alright, so with that, the driver board is pretty much completed here. I have a few more things to add. The 4.7 microfarad input DC filter capacitor here, as well as the wires for the drivers, and the diodes here. Both the this is the 3 diode, and this is the 4 diode pair, and they will go into their respective holes. There's 3 holes here for them, and one is a common hole. The connector up here will be moved off the board here, so it doesn't hang over. And with that, it's pretty much down here. I'll throw this in the amplifier here. Alright, so here we are at the amplifier. And here we go. So the board just comes right down here. The power plug will just plug in. I ran the wires here. I ran the wires here for the power here, and they go up, and they're actually soldered directly to the buses here. So there's negative, there's positive up here, and then there's ground here on this ground strap. So this plug will just plug right into here. It is keyed so it can't go in backwards or sideways. That'll plug in just like that. And then the board will sit just like this inside the amplifier, with the transistors holding up the board. So, thanks for watching, and if you enjoyed this video, give it a huge thumbs up here, and subscribe for more.